I'm just curious why Carl Persis allowed himself to stay in the shadow of Frank Bruno for so long, because I think everyone agreed. I mean, we endorsed Carl Persis, make no bones about it. I didn't think Jason Davis was experienced enough. I thought he was viable as a person that would come in and give a fresh perspective. But in terms of all the issues with the budgets and all the sort of complicated things they get in with legal, there's layers of bureaucracy, and the county is really in a mess right now. But with a lot of issues, what to do about beach driving, what to do about firefighters and pensions.
And Persis believes himself entitled to the position. So I think it made him not on the A game, because he allowed Jason to be the underdog. He thought he was entitled to the position, just like Bruno thought he was entitled to the
Let me be clear about this. To me, it's like the buck stops here. If you're Frank Bruno and you're the county chair, these are issues that are directly under you. You get the spotlight. You're the face of the county. I made it very clear to Mr. Persis, and I even asked him and made these points in the public candidate debates. You can't be a yes man. You can't hide behind Jim Deneen and county spokesman Dave Byron when the going gets tough. You need to be your own person. And that's why I was asking you a couple minutes ago, why didn't he step out of the shadow sooner? By the way, Bruno and Persis are not as close and hanky-panky as people think. In fact, Persis ran against Bruno the very first time Bruno ran, and Persis lost.
I don't know Mr. Persis.
And you've even said yourself during the campaign that he's more fiscally conservative than Bruno.
Yes, well, and he is. If you look at his votes in the past, he's voted against several of Bruno's budgets. And he did oppose Bruno on several issues of importance during the time that they served together on the council. But, I mean, as I say, I don't know Mr. Persis at all. I have the impression that he's not a decisive individual. I have the impression that he kind of moves slowly into a thing. I have the feeling that he's the kind of person who doesn't want to make waves, and because of that can be pushed around by a stronger, he's not the alpha wolf in the pack.
Well, then again, neither was Bruno. He's more flash than anything else. But let's talk for a minute about the other big race, the other high-profile race in here, and then we'll wrap this up. Well, why don't we just end this segment now, and we'll come back for the third and final segment. So, for our third and final segment, I wanted to continue on the Bruno hit parade, where he ran a high-profile race against Dorothy Huckel for state representative. It was an ugly race. Both sides invested millions of dollars, and both were term limited. Although Dorothy Huckel has a reputation of being tough-talking legislator, she was a state representative for the last 8 years representing our area in southeast Volusia. When we were the only ones, by the way, to have a debate that featured these two.
That's right.
The public candidate debate. No one else seemed to be interested in it. But we got the two candidates together, I guess, because...
And there were some fireworks in that debate.
No, there were definitely fireworks in that debate. You were there, Dana. I even commented as the moderator at some point that it's like the Jerry Springer show because of the intensity of the commercials that they were talking about on TV, where Dorothy Huckel was made to look like a glad-handing legislator handing out packages to her lobbyist friends in the neighborhood in Tallahassee. Then there was the radio commercial by Huckel's camp showing Bruno as this mobster type guy, spending all kinds of money and taking these trips. They had these Jersey-style accents. But beyond the stupidity of the commercials and the incessant night and day on the TV and the Bright House, the cable, Dorothy Huckel's message resonated, didn't it, Dana, in terms of his reputation speaks for itself. Tax and spend liberal, not willing to take responsibility, and as we outlined in the previous segment, more than half a dozen major scandals that have cost the taxpayers millions of dollars.
Well, I think this election really showed. I mean, look at it. The Republicans have 3 spots on the county council that we didn't have before because...
It was 6-1, now it's 4-3.
4-3, because the public is realizing we don't want to promote Bruno for even more spending when our own county is in a mess. It's the second highest tax county. They don't want to promote him to a higher position that's going to cost us more.
Now, Stan, Bruno has somewhat of an argument in his, I'm gonna defend him on one thing. I mean, Dorothy did go above and beyond our handlers in the commercial where, Frank Bruno made us the second highest, but didn't he kind of in a way, just by leading by example, in other words, he may not have been responsible for school taxes, the city taxes, there's 16 cities. There's 24 separate taxing districts, taxing entities in Volusia County.
40 taxing authorities in Volusia.
Right, but I'm talking about the districts. The city, and I'm talking about government, municipal, I'm not talking
That's
about
right.
things like mosquito control and things like that, but I'm talking like, for example, Daytona Beach city budget, that's a tax.
Okay.
So he wouldn't be responsible for what Daytona's or what the hospital authorities or the school, but doesn't he kind of set the tone as the county chair? And that was the other thing that kind of troubled me. And Josh Wagner, he was very, I was very impressed with him in the primary. Nancy Epps was very well, gave him a good fight, and she, former Ponce Inlet mayor, and of course, you guys supported her, even though she was nonpartisan. She had no party affiliation.
No.
But it was a nonpartisan race anyway. Wagner kept hitting on something that kind of resonated inside of me in a way it was a little disturbing, where he said, I saved you $74 million in the last 4 years. Who wants some money that I've saved for you? If they saved us, if Bruno and Persis and Wagner and everybody else saved us $74 million by cutting, by eliminating open positions and eliminating other
And why are
things.
my property taxes so high?
Well, why would they need these things to begin with? Why is it that when Bruno was here for 20 years, enormous amounts of taxing, and now they're saying they saved us, did they really save us, or did they cut the excess? They didn't cut, there's no austere budget. I mean, that's one thing Jason Davis and I talked about, and he made it very clear. When you're talking about an austere budget, you're talking about public safety, police and fire. You're not talking about, let's give $1 million to all these community groups to keep their castles going. Let's do this, let's get this program, let's get that program.
Look, in fairness to Mr. Bruno, you cannot blame him for every single thing that's wrong in Volusia County. But that's in part because so very many things are wrong. He was on the council for 20 years. During that time, what did he do to keep things from going wrong? I would argue that during that time, perhaps they did save $74 million, or perhaps they reduced the rate of growth by a certain amount, which they can call savings, like Obama does, and count that as $74 million in saving, but that's not the point. Also, during that time, they ran up the debt incredibly. The county now
Well,
has
the Ocean Center alone.
Look, the county has $250 million in debt. They have all their revenue streams, or almost all of them, bonded out. They have white elephants to which they have to divert money from the regular county budget. The Ocean Center alone in excess of $1 million every year, and that's not the only one. And finally, they have committed themselves to projects in the future, particularly Sunrail, which will put this county into bankruptcy about 7 or 8 years from now, when the federal and state monies, which help to support the capital outlays and the operating outlays to keep that thing going once it's built, are taken away. Then the county will have to shoulder the whole burden, and every study which has ever been conducted on that thing suggests that it will not pay its operating expenses, let alone the cost of interest on the bonds to get the money for the CapEx to build the damn thing in the first place.
Yeah.
So what happened on Mr. Bruno's watch, whatever little bitty things may have been done on the side to reduce expenditures by Mr. Wagner or by any of the other members of the council during this period, they are dwarfed by what was done on the council to put this county in a very precarious fiscal position.
And now Dana, it's up to Jason Davis, and it's not going to be a picnic for him. He has a learning curve. Anybody going into that position, high profile, where you're running a meeting and you've got to serve on various committees, it's a very big commitment of time. I think one of the things that really, I think, turned the voters off more than anything else in this election was the amount of money spent and the amount of money that was being thrown around, and also the amount of resources available to those in public life.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Frank Bruno didn't need to work outside of the county council job. That's not a full-time position. But he's making, the job paid him $49 plus a year. So multiply that over 8 years. I know it went up, his salary went up considerably from 8 years ago, but still.
And his wife was making a six-figure income from
Right.
the Daytona State College.
Well, but even worse than that, you had someone like Ted Doran, who had these big contracts with the school board. I mean, I refer to him in my stories often as the high-powered attorney, Ted Doran. $200,000 of his own money put into the campaign. Persis loaning himself $50,000. He had over $200,000 in the campaign. And then I think the other thing that maybe hurt Carl Persis more than anything was the fact that he had to leave the county council in midstream because of a technicality with the state's retirement program, aka the DROP program, where he got like a
So
third
that
of,
he could get his face farther into the trough.
well,
Yeah.
a third of $1,000,000 that he would get in a payout. I mean, he earned it, but still,
Sure.
it's how do you? I asked the candidates this in the final debate. How can voters relate to you when you're getting a third of $1,000,000 in retirement, plus you're going to get a few grand a month in your retirement as a school administrator for, 20 years or so, and on top of that, you're going to get a $49,000 salary, and you're telling me that you can understand when I have trouble paying my light bill or I have to come up with extra money for my kid for books for college. How do you relate to that, Dana?
Well, I think a lot of people basically are looking like that they don't see the person relating. Now, yeah, Jason Davis is coming from a background of, he doesn't have that much money. His wife, during this whole campaign process, lost her job to downsizing. She switched locations to be closer to home. She lost her job. Now she's having to work in Alachua that's the closest place I think it was Alachua, Ocala area, for her to make an income.
Right.
So Jason is from that background. They're not rich. He made very little money at the radio station, and like I said, his wife during this whole campaign lost her job. People can relate to him. They couldn't relate to Carl Persis.
Stan, closing from you on this whole sad affair of millions of dollars in Volusia County wasted on.
Well, I think you also, in addition to the monies that the two men spent, the two Democratic candidates, you also have to add the money that came from the PACs that were funded primarily by large businesses and wealthy individuals who are consistent supporters or have been in the past of the Democratic Party here in Volusia County. Jason Davis faced a tidal wave of money, and he overcame it with his own personality, with his own hard work in the campaign, and with an extraordinary grassroots effort on his side. I think we have changed the political landscape. Jason, Deb, Pat Patterson, the Republican Party, the local positions we won, the state level positions we won. Of the 8 state level positions now that have something to do with Volusia County, one is a Democrat. The others were all Republicans. Our new Congress representative is now Ron DeSantis, Republican.
I was there at the election night when he was giving a victory speech.
Exactly. So the point is, I think that with very little money, but with the right message and the right organization and the right candidates, we have shown that the American form, the constitutional form of representative government in this country still works, despite what Obama is trying to do to us.
Well,
and God willing, it'll work 4 years from now.
With that said, for Dana Dougherty Swanson, for Stan Escudero, congratulations on your candidates and their strong showing. This is Henry Frederick of Headline Surfer, and this has been the Roundtable.